Mic check 1 2. This ain't a pull track or crew. This warehouse 15, but legends speak true. 3 rings on my fingers, gold medals gleam. But under this armor, life ain't always what it seemed. Yeah, we trained hard, pushed limits, reached the peak. But the pressure cooker boiled, man, so weeks I couldn't speak. Sponsorships and smiles, hiding the inner fight. Sacrifices made, lonely days.
Well, we're back. This is episode 2, and it's not going to change. It's just going to get better. This is the Warehouse 15, and 3 Olympians, 3 coaches, 3 athletes.
Oh, how about that gold, silver, and bronze? Dang, that's crazy.
No, that's rough.
We covered the spectrum. We covered the spectrum.
Just remember, I didn't say that. But but we are keeping we are keeping it real. So when you get a chance to compete at that level, it doesn't matter what you bring home. It matters what you did on the way. It matters how it changed your life. And for the 3 individuals on this, I'm Herb Perez. We got Juan Moreno with us, and we got TJ Jennings, and nobody better. Couldn't think of 3 better people, excluding myself, of course, to talk about it, because we're going to keep it real. But, it's going to be personal. And if you take it personally, that's okay, because this wasn't meant to be nice. It wasn't meant to be bad. It's just meant to be real. And with that, first, I'd like to welcome you all here. Mr. Moreno, what's going on today, Coach?
Hey, everything's good, man. Happy to be here back in number 2. We're just going to keep building this. And I love when you say take it personal, because for some reason we're in this little world where everybody takes it personal for the wrong reasons. Why not take it personal to make you better, to empower you? And, that's always okay. But, it's a new day. It's a new day, man. Gloves came off. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about this.
That's what I like about it. Again, this is literally almost 3 generations of Taekwondo here. We came from 3 close but slightly separate generations. And Mr. Jennings, Coach, what do you have to say for us today?
I like to think I'm a blend of all 3. I got a chance to fight with the regular Hogus, the no Hogus, the point system on the screen, the paper system, all the way to electronics. So I'm always excited to sit down and have a conversation with you guys about the past of Taekwondo, the future of Taekwondo, and like the current of Taekwondo. So looking forward to our topic today.
Well, I know it's not the subject, but I like how we all blend together. You're right. Herb, you were one of my mentors, right? And then you kind of saw me making teams, and then as you filtered out, then I was an athlete and a coach, and same thing. I got to work with TJ. So it's interesting how our generations do overlap. Sidebar. Sorry about that.
No, that's exactly why it matters. I mean, we were here. We've been here for quite some time. You guys are still there, still coaching, and I'm doing some other stuff within the sport in a different way. And I think that's what matters. I like this group because we can speak authoritatively. We can speak about it in an experiential sense. But more importantly, we can put a perspective that others may not have had. And the reason for that is we were at it and doing it at the highest level at every stage of the game, when it was a full contact sport with chest protectors and barely some equipment to protect you, when knockouts were not rare, but were very prevalent. And then we moved into those other areas where it started to deal with the referee issues, and they got into electronics, and then virtually we are now. And realistically, we are where we are now, which is, we're going to talk about that today. With that segue, though, let's talk a little bit about that today. Where do we find ourselves now in 2024, and what was last year like? And more importantly, what does that say for the future? But let's start with where we are now. What's going on now?
I'll let you start first, sir.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, 12 years into electronics, right? I mean, we started in 2012. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. From the Olympic Games, 2012. It started in 2008. So it's been, quite a long time. There's been different generations of it. It's improved, but in my opinion, not improved nearly enough. By virtue of having to, video replay cards and look for all these little minute touches and points. So we are definitely in a better electronic age. I think that some of the new systems that are coming out of China and Korea are trying to blend maybe some, and I even hate this term, and TJ, we've talked about this a lot. I hate old school, new school terms. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the modern current day has blended some things from the past generations, whatever generation you want, I guess, because people older than you, Herb, would say, old school is the 70s. You say old school is the 80s and 90s, and TJ may say the old school is 2000. So it's all relevant. But my point is, I think the electronics have developed enough, and the athletes and coaches have developed enough that you're starting to see a pretty interesting blend worldwide. Not good enough yet for the system, and we can get into that in a second, but I think that's where we're at right now, in my opinion.
CJ?
Nah, I would agree. I think like for me, I'm a toss up. I kind of enjoy the electronics era of this game, and at the same time I do miss the mindset that came with the older style game. When I say older style game, I mean I'm going all the way back to when we just did paper scoring and you didn't know what the score was until the end of the round was over. So your mentality then was to finish this person. I mean, I've you go through matches where you beat this kid up and it's 1-0 and you got to go back and do it all again. And you kicked them 99 times, but you got 1 point for that whole round. So it twisted your mind a little bit to know that I have to keep going forward. I got to keep fighting and I got to make sure this fight sways in my direction. So I think now, simply because I mean you go from that generation to the scoring on the screen generation, it makes it completely different too. Seeing that immediate response of I scored, I scored. So I think it's just changed the dynamic of obviously the sport, but also the athlete. We never thought about maintaining points back then. We never were trying not to get scored on. We were just trying to score and score and score. And
Good point.
I think you have a mix of that now with some of the countries that kick a lot, but at the same time, it's very easy to sit for 30, 40 seconds when you're up by 5 and 6 and know this person has to cover ground. Before we didn't have that luxury. So me, I go back and forth with it a little bit when I'm training my guys. I try to get them focused on, look, we always have to put the pressure a little bit, whether it's with our motion and movement and all that stuff like that. But definitely, like Coach Moreno just said, I think we're in a better era. I mean, I went through the one where there was, you remember, we had to like protest all the headshots. You had to ask for all the headshots, and the referees were scoring it, just the headshots. And I lost a lot of matches just simply because the crowd cheers and their foot goes flying over your head. You know what I mean? So I think we're at a better place, but like you said, definitely not perfect, definitely not close. So hopefully we keep changing and progressing through this whole process.
Well, I don't watch. I mean, I got to be honest. I try to watch and do my best to watch, and I would argue it's gotten better. I think one of the challenges is, remember how we got here. We got here because they couldn't find referees who could score the matches accurately or fairly. And so when we were competing, and like you said, you'd fight a fight and it would be 1-0 after you scored, 10 points or 3 points or 5 points. The next round would be 0-1 for the other guy. And so you'd find yourself in really a 10-point must system. Now, you obviously did more than that, and you obviously scored more points than that. And I can remember one match in particular for Coach Moreno, and I can definitely remember at least one for myself, where the outcome of the scoreboard didn't match the outcome of what we did on the mat. And that was because the match was preordained by the Koreans in Korea, and they needed their win, and they were going to get their win however they got it, whether that was by pruning the tree, as they say, which is they would knock you out early if they got you, or if they did it actually in a final or in a semifinal. And that's unfortunate because that lack of ethics and morals and scruples caused us to have to use what I would call a substandard method of scoring. And I was, as you guys know, one of the guys who created that system for scoring. And the multi-point scoring system was not meant to be used with electronic scoring. It was meant to be used for referees. If the guy kicks somebody in the face, we said, give him 5 points. He kicks him with a body kick that's turning, give him 3 points. He does a regular round kick, give him 2 points. And if he punches, do 1 point. And with a jump, there was an additional point. And that's how you got to 5 for the face kicks. But then they came up with these electronic scoring things, which when you first saw them, I don't remember if you were on that trip or not, there was a junior trip that went to Vietnam, and they had a clown show. Like they have the 3-ring circus, and at the end they bring out the clown show, and there's a clown car. It was a clown show. I mean, we were laughing. We were laughing. And I got to be honest.
I swear, when I saw that, and I actually saw one in Korea as well, I went there to watch it, and I was like, this will never make it. I remember saying that to the CEO at the time, who was Dave Askin. I said, this will never fly, because it was so bad. It was such a joke.
They were skating across the floor. And then, my favorite moment is with Jungkook Young and I, and we're sitting at the World Championships in Copenhagen, and we're watching this, and we're sitting with whoever the provider was then, whether it was LaJust or whoever. And he's telling us how they've been doing all this testing, and it's better, and this is good. And we're sitting there, and Jungkook Young and I were watching this match, and the guy, one of the heavyweights, it might have been from Cuba or something, hits this guy with a bomb to the body. I mean, just huge sound. and no point goes up.
Yeah.
And so we look at him, and Jungkook Young goes to him, okay, you need to go back to the laboratory until that's a point, right? And it's true, right? So as far as where we are now, one of the challenges is that you don't want to give the referees the power to wave off something that wasn't a technique. So now you have something where a guy sticks his arm out straight, touches the hogu, even if it's with the right amount of contact, or a foot, which you've seen before, and the foot and the wet hand thing scores a point, and the referee can't wave that off. And so non-techniques that wouldn't put, Taekwondo was originally a full contact martial art. The idea was you kick somebody, it hurt, and there was a reason you got a point. It was enough force or power, trembling shock, that it caused your opponent to be injured or damaged. And that's not happening. I don't see it with the electronics, but you guys are in the ring more than me, so I'd like to hear from you.
No, you're right. You're right. But what I'll say is, it's interesting. First of all, let's be honest. There's not another martial art discipline that is scored by electronics other than fencing. Not judo, not jiu-jitsu, not boxing, not wrestling, not Greco wrestling, and except for Taekwondo. Now, with the striking arts, boxing, kickboxing, things like that. I mean, again, nobody uses an electronic apparatus, not correct. Nobody. So it's interesting because, I mean, again, I'm beating a dead horse because we're probably never going to go back, but still, to think that our human natured people in our sport weren't able to judge this consistently, fairly, it's a shame. But that being said,
well, hit that for a minute. So what would happen in basketball or football, professional football, basketball, or any professional sport, if a referee was incapable of judging the match fairly? You know where those referees go?
Nowhere. That's every sport right now. You watch football, you watch basketball. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go on a side and tell you referees just suck in general most of the time. Like it's not, and maybe it's they missed it, maybe they didn't see it, maybe they interpreted it differently. But honestly, it happens across a lot of sports where you see a lot of bad calls and things. I'll go back just a little bit to this conversation. I'm gonna say when I used to fight Mark Lopez back in the day, the electronics for me gave me a window to win. I don't think I was gonna be allowed to win without the electronics. It was a point in time where me and him would fight and I would hit him a lot. I would score points and it was 0-0. It was 2-0 him. It was 1-0 him. So when the electronics came around, it gave me enough of an edge, enough of fairness. I don't know what you call it to be able to put myself on that Olympic team and to make, multiple world championship teams and, the national teams. But before that, it was a little tough. If it was
actually, that's what the Europeans say too right now. The Europeans, I mean, countries like Serbia and Croatia, small countries, never were significant in Taekwondo. And some of it was talent, some of it was pool, some of it was coaching, but some of it was just the unfair biasness to some of the bigger European countries. And so when electronics came out, now we're seeing countries like Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia, and all of a sudden they have some Olympic gold medalists. And so I don't know what that means, but I mean, actually, that's a really good point, TJ, because listen, Mark Lopez was a great fighter, but it would have been very interesting to know what those matches would have looked like pre-Olympics, or I'm sorry, pre-electronics with electronics. I mean, again, power, this and that, but there were some times, and we saw, I mean, that's just your match, but I've been to U.S. team trials when I wasn't fighting. And I watched some high-level people from one club and fighting high-level people from another club, and one club wasn't going to win. I mean, shoes on the other foot. The Lopez group, I mean, they couldn't win to save their life. It was just the fix was in. The match, the points weren't going up. The Cobb Johns came at the wrong time. It was crazy, but
the corruption that used to happen, I remember being in '87 and the U.S. team captain lost the match to Mark Isbester. Mark Isbester won the match clearly. Won the match. They raised his hand. All of a sudden, there was a phone call made to the then president of USA Taekwondo, and there was a room. Everybody went into a room, and an hour later came out, and that match was overturned, even though it had been appealed and the appeal was lost.
Oh, so they left already?
They left already. They came back, and this individual changed that. That's why we have this system, because systemically, the organization was unable to, they changed the outcome of that match so that that person could go to the Pan Am Games. So had
So
that person lost to Pan Am, had lost at that match to Mark Isbester, well-known fact, they went into a room, came back, U.S. team captain, all of a sudden the decision was returned. He got to fight the rest of the day. And, you know, that's not the first time that that's happened. There are many times, you know, there were great fighters out of Oregon that couldn't win a match, couldn't do anything to win a match. Mike Kanda, for example, and guys like this. So, you
okay, I
know,
remember guys.
there's no doubt that there were, you know, historically, you fought Korea, you score 5 points, you might get one.
Right.
You
So
score
let me
one,
ask
you
you.
get
So
none.
all that being said, as much as and we could talk about the styles of the athletes and stuff like that, because I know we have some different opinions, but we could talk about it, professionally. But all that you just said, all that TJ just said, are we better off now?
As
No,
far as the system, mm, I,
If
I
fairly,
yeah, I would say no. I would say no. I mean, again, I get the human error and I get the human bias and I get at least I'm gonna say this. At least you say, you score 5 points on Korea, you get 1 point. At least I knew that's what the ratio was. Like I know I got to go in there and do a little bit more to win this match, and I know that before we got there. I knew that while I was training. I knew that before I got on the plane.
yeah,
I knew it.
yeah.
But with the electronic system now, I mean, I've coached and I've fought. Obviously, I've used it to fight, but just I think coaching, you get a different look at it too. There's a lot of discrepancies in like the Hogu system that just change matches. I mean, you don't know what's gonna
Well, is
score.
it
You
is
don't
it the
know.
essence of Taekwondo? So that's my only point. And listen,
no,
the
you're
fair, it's equally unfair for everybody. That's the best I've heard. But here's the reality. So I won internationally, not because I was the best fighter, but because it was so hard for me to get out of the country. The amount of cheating and
Mm,
nepotism, and I could give you the list, but history's written itself. I'm not going to grouse about the past, but for me to get out of the country, for Juan Moreno to get out of the country past the self-interested, mostly Korean instructors with Korean students and sons, to be frank, in my situation, on a couple of occasions, actually on both occasions, with their personal sons, and then they're the head of the referee corps. For me to get out of the country, I had to beat those guys by 5 and 6 points. And that's the way I got out of the country. So by the time I went to international, it was actually kind of cool because I'm like, oh, this is going to be fairer, and I'm only going to have to worry about Korea, where that's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the technical, and this is my only point on this, the technical regimen of the United States and its athletes has diminished, and they're athletically, you can argue better shape, more talented, taller, smaller, definitely not better looking than us three, but they can work on that. But their technical regimen hasn't improved. And the reason is it's not forced to improve. When you're put in the crucible and you got to fight a guy like Naeem Hassan or John Lee or Scott Rohr or Scott Moranti or any of the athletes I could name that I fought, you better show up. You better show up and you better be good, because they're not kicking to put their hand on your chest protector and wet their palm and get a point. They're not trying to sweep their foot over your head with monkey kick or whatever, weasel kick. They're trying to kill you. They're trying to hit you so hard that you go home in a
but
box, and that's
let,
reality.
let's. I mean, okay. So I mean, we could talk about the system. We could talk about the referees. We could talk about if we're better or worse. Let's talk about since the electronic age started.
Okay.
Let's bring it back to this country. Where we started, let's just say 2012, into where we are now, 2024. That's 12 years, right? That's quite a bit, of Olympic cycles, 12, 16, 21, and 24. We're on our fourth cycle. Better, worse, even, because I want to get back to something you said about our technique development, but I'll throw that question out there to you guys first. Where do you think we're at?
TJ.
I for me, I feel like we used to have more of an identity. I felt like, we had I don't know where we stand, to be honest with you. I think we're in the mix. I think we're involved, but are we scary? Are we great? I think the biggest thing for me was always that hope that day we show up to tournaments and the world was afraid of us. I don't feel like we're no closer to that now than we. Listen, I feel like we had some strong teams before, and I'm not saying the teams that show up to the World Championships are not strong now or competitive now, but the goal was always supposed to be for us to be the most dominant country at the competition, and that's what we showed up to do, and that's what we showed up to always to show everyone that feeling was there, that the thought was there, and like you said, um, a few minutes ago, to get out of the country was something scary. To get out of the country, when I left, when I actually got out, I felt like I was a superhero. I felt like I could beat anybody because I knew what I had been through in this country, the names I had to beat, the people I had to beat, the number of times I had to beat them. I mean, I go back to, for me, my Olympic process. Got a medal at the Olympic Games and came back and fought another World Championships team trials. Like, it was immediate. There was no, when you talk about, putting you through the grinder or putting you into the mix, there was no protection whatsoever. You did it, you had to go do it again. You had to do it again and again and again. And that gave me, again, my edge for the amount of time I had it. That gave me my edge, that the confidence has. But as far as I think we've lost that. I think that's not there anymore. I don't think we have the depth in divisions. I don't think we have the depth in development. I don't think we have a lot of things that got us to that point of looking to your left and to your right. And I know you named some names that these guys are all scared. Everyone in your division could go out there and put up 100 points. They could go out there and fight. They can go out there and put you away. So you had to be ready and willing to fight every single person. So for me, I don't think we're any closer. Definitely not better.
I think everybody in all our divisions. I mean, it was a different generation of athletes, but I mean, it's an interesting question. So, I mean, Coach, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's better, worse? What do you think?
Well, I mean, listen, I think there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. I think number one, you could just look at medal production. Okay, in 12 we had 2 medals. 24 we had 1, right? And you just keep going back, and it was only been one. So I think just on production, I don't care if you like it or you don't like it, it's less production. So that would be a thumbs down. I think that, you're right, TJ, that there was a moment in your era, certainly in my era, and I know in their era, when the United States walked in, people are a little bit shook. When people looked at the draws, they were like, oh shit, there he is. So I don't think that happens much anymore. There might be 1 or 2 that kind of raise the eyebrow and go, dang, I thought I would get him later. So that's not good. You want to say something on that?
I know, I was about to say, I miss, you know what it was too? I think, to kind of get into that, I miss random draws. I miss showing up to the World Championships and showing up to these big tournaments, and there was no way anybody's protected. You're not separating number 1, number 2, number 3,
Yeah.
number 4. It was irrelevant. I think that also plays a big part of it now. The rank system and knowing exactly where you fall, who you fall against, and it creates this different dynamic of competition.
But I'll get to my last point. So the results are down. I'm gonna just say the feeling is definitely not there. I mean, I coach for another country. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're not necessarily worried. I'm not saying we're gonna win all the time, but it is what it is. And I would think that the rest of the world feels the same way. But I'm gonna get to the most important point. And I learned this from my predecessors. Some wise guy told me he would go to Korea back in the day to not learn how to be a Korean, but learn how to beat the Koreans. That guy over there, that ugly old guy right there. I remember you saying that. I swear I remember you saying that. And I think, TJ, think about it right now. Everybody wants to copy this style in Spain, or this style in France, or this style in GB, or this style in Croatia. That's all we're doing. We're bad imitations. We're bad imitations. And if we're just trying to learn from them and catch them and try to be like them and do the same shit as them, how the hell are we going to beat them? They're laughing at us. They're just going, oh yeah, we did that last year. We're doing this year. We're just always a click behind. And so when I see the kids and the coaches, they're pretty good. They kind of know what they're doing, but they're just one step behind. Someone's going to have some balls and just say, you know what? We got to have our own system. Again, self-serving. There was a time when I was working with the organization, and I remember one of our main focus was, what's our identity? What do we want to look like? What do we want the athletes to be like? And unless I've been missing something, I don't know what the identity is. And I heard this thing, pick a fight. Oh, let's go pick a fight today. That's their mantra. There are some people's mantras. I'm like, okay, you're not picking too good of fights because you're getting beat up, and I hate to say that. I mean, listen, I bleed, red, white, and blue, but I don't want to be Debbie Downer and stuff like that, but somehow some way. We gotta be better. They gotta be
So
better.
I put a picture of this is the US team trials for next year. And as you can tell, he's got
Take that down, because I'm right
he's
by
got
your face. I don't want
he's
to see
got
that.
he's got some cojones. But that's what it's turned into. It's turned into ballet, right? So I'm gonna change it now. I just had to put it up. But I've said this for a long time. The technical regimen, I think we can agree has changed. What better or worse, you can argue. I always hear when I talk, coach, when I talk to you, you're always telling me, hey, these guys are better. They're really athletic and they're good in practice. I'm going to tell you something. I haven't seen a back kick, like a real back kick. I haven't seen anybody practice it. And when you don't practice it, you lose it. You don't use it, you lose it. And that's kind of everything in life, including this area here.
But it's like all the kicks, Young. It's
Oh yeah,
they can back kick. They just don't back kick with the intent to like kill anybody, because there's no need, there's no value. I mean, I teach on electronics.
They're back hook kicking the body, right? Which, if you did that to us when we were fighting, I'd punch you in the foot. But
it wouldn't be rewarded, so you wouldn't do it. That's
this is the point right now is they're rewarding I don't blame the athletes. What they reward is what you're going to do. So if they reward it, that's what you do. Then I have no issue with that. But the question becomes stepping has gone away. The regimen of Taekwondo that utilized stepping and multiple kicking has gone away. This idea of what they call, which was actually made illegal when we were fighting, canceling, this leg canceling nonsense. It was made illegal because they knew what they would do to the game. They knew it would ruin the game. If you allowed people to lift their leg and leg check or kick under a leg and do all that, it would ruin the game. Now, I'm not talking about strictly lifting your leg under a kick to thwart it, right? The abductor, adductor muscles aren't strong enough to withstand that, so it ruins that. And so then you go back to, okay, so if you're going to make the argument, you got to first understand fundamentally what is Taekwondo. If you're going to say we want to focus on kicking, then you focus on kicking and just strong punching. You focus on those two things. But then if you lift your leg and you just touch a chest protector without bending your knee, without any force, but you make enough contact to make a point happen, that's not really the essence of Taekwondo. Taekwondo is either a full contact martial art that is deadly in its intent and deadly in its ability, or it's not. If it's a game of tag, then we're no different than point karate and any other sport that uses. And so I don't disagree. You can make the rules fair. It's equally as fair and sucky for everyone, but it hasn't helped Taekwondo grow. And I'll give you my final example, and then I'll stop talking. Watch 1980, watch a game of basketball from 1980, watch a game of football from 1980, watch a game of a match of boxing from 1980, and then watch one in 2024. And tell me what the difference is, and watch Taekwondo. If you watch Taekwondo at the 88 Olympics, for example, and you watch 2024, and you do the same with basketball, you'll see an evolution and a escalation and increase in technical acumen for everything that I've mentioned, with the exception of one. Taekwondo has de-evolved. Its technical regimen has de-evolved. Its stepping, its strategic component has de-evolved. And it's because once you change the rules to ignore what you're trying to reward, if you don't understand what you are, then you can't create a system to reward it. So you have to say to yourself, what is Taekwondo and what is Taekwondo competition? And if you say to yourself, it's a full contact martial art where kicks hit with enough power to cause damage, and that's why we need to wear a chest protector and headgear, then that's what it is. If you say that's not the case, then take off the chest protector, make an electronic sensor on the chest, take off, you have a helmet that's the same thing, because all you have to do is touch enough to make a game. And that's called a game. That's a game, not a fight. So I still believe Taekwondo should be a fight, and it should be rewarded as such.
I agree. I'm gonna go from where you started. I think at the highest levels is not what bothers me. I think honestly, if you're watching enough matches at the highest level, you see great athletes, you see great movement, you see some good countries doing some good things and some good moments. I think for me where we fell off was the development
Mic
from
check,
the
1, 2.
bottom. I
This ain't
think
no
when you
bull
start
track or
teaching,
crew.
talking about
This
the
is
techniques
warehouse
and style, when you
15, where
start teaching
legends
a
speak
kid
true.
to do
3
this because
rings
it's
on my fingers,
sport,
gold
not
medals
because
gleam,
it's
but
right,
under
not
this
because
armor,
it's
life ain't always what it
proper,
seems.
not because it's
Yeah, we
actual,
train hard, push
taekwondo, but
limits,
we're
reach the
doing this
peak.
just
But the
because
pressure cook a
it's
boiled man, so
3 points. We're
easy
doing this
couldn't
just
speak.
because it's 4 points.
Sponsorships
I
and
believe
smiles, hiding
we
the
got away
inner
from the
fight.
1 point system.
Sacrifices
I didn't
made,
do
lonely days.
anything to be rewarded more points. If I was gonna hit you in the face, it's because your hands were down. If I was gonna spin on you, it's because you came too wide. So that's that technical aspect that you're talking about that we've lost. Now I don't really have to do. I'm only gonna do what's necessary to score more points. I'm gonna lift my leg and flick. I'm gonna go underneath. I'm gonna punch because I know the referees are gonna press it in this moment. So everything we do is because it's going to give us more points. It's not necessarily at the lower levels where again I've watched some of the junior stuff and the cadet stuff and all that, and that's what really bogs me down because you get these tall, long kids who, again, if you give them a little bit more, if you give them a little bit more understanding of, like you just said, why are you moving? Why are you stepping? Why are you changing? Why are you going underneath? I mean, clashing was a bad thing. You guys remember when I used to train and you went back leg round kick and someone back leg round kick at the same time, you wanted to punch him in the face. You wanted to be like, hey,
Yeah.
did you not see my leg? It was like unheard of to back kick to the wrong side. All these things that you would just never do that now are just rewarded because we get points for it. So I think for us, the part we've lost the most is that development of the kid side, the kid levels, and when we started doing cadet world championships and all that stuff, is I think is where it started because you're forcing someone that should be in their development stages to go out there and win right now, and that's never was the goal, and that's where we are in the world. So
Real, very, very well said. I mean, and you know, and also along those lines, TJ is the how many listen, I do seminars for a living and I know you do many of them as well. We get these kids and we see them and they have ability, they're tall, they're flexible, they're motivated, and we're just like, they don't understand how to stand, they don't understand how to guard, they don't understand rhythm, they don't understand movement. And you're just kind of like, you kind of sit there and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they don't know these things. And so you're right, we're skipping these steps to just to win, to just put our foot and touch the headgear. So um, it's it's cheating the system, and we're not being rewarded for it. And now it's a downward spiral. So when do we cut it off? Because Young, I'm going to tell you, I'm watching historically good countries like Korea. I'm watching Thailand. Of course, now the Iranians have been good for a long time. The Russians, these countries, they're stepping, they're spinning, they're doing things, and guess what? They're clicking up and they're ahead of the
Yeah.
game. They're doing their own thing. They're not following, and they're winning. Right, TJ? Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? I
no,
mean, these
one
kids are.
hundred percent, 100%. I think everybody's wrapping back around the other way. I mean, before it was in the beginning was that style of kick, 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 kick. Everybody's kicking, everybody's throwing, doing a lot of standing still and just fighting in whatever space they're in. But yeah, you watch some of the countries that he just mentioned, they're starting to move their feet, they're starting to motion and check. I mean, for me, Korea is always ahead of the game a little bit. They all, I mean, remember when we went to the world qualifications and we're supposed to fight with Dato, then we didn't fight with Dato, we supposed to fight with LeJust, and then went to regular chess cards. And you watch, I remember Dae Hoon Lee was there, and you watch them cutting and flopping, like that was just you could tell that's what they had been doing for so long, and we were on regular chess cards that day, so they're always ahead of the curve. But I mean, I'm just for me, and I know I've been around Coach Moreno a lot when we've, I've taught with him and been next to him, and we talk a lot about motion and movement and why it's important. I never I never understood why we would ever in any game in any format take our movement away. Why would I stand still when I can move and make it just that much harder for you to kind of figure it out, you know?
No
But the,
sport is predicated on that. No sport. There isn't a sport
hmm
that's predicated on that. It's always
no,
movement.
yeah,
Well,
and I
you mentioned the Koreans are ahead of the game. That's because they create the game. The
Yeah.
game is
for sure.
designed by not created it. They changed the rules. There was a case here where my friend was involved in. It was Polaroid. So what Polaroid would do, and he won a huge lawsuit, 95 million, $92 million. It's in Supreme Court kind of level stuff. And what Polaroid would do is they'd literally create the uh, processing of the type of film it was. And then they would release it for 6 months so they'd have a monopoly on it. And no one else could do it. And that's what Korea does. The KTA creates and recreates the scoring system, and the WT takes it. And then that's what you're seeing, right? You're seeing that's what's happening, you know. Juan, you'll laugh when you see this background. I know you can't see it actually. That's a background of how we practice Taekwondo. There's a guy laying on the floor because he can't breathe. And so the idea that Korea is better at it, all the other countries, I agree, they're stepping. I believe it's just a matter of time before what was Taekwondo figures out, with the exception of a few things, like Arlene Lemus, right? She won back then because she was outside the box and did all this stuff that was outside the box. And that's still going to happen. There'll be people that win for those reasons. But stepping and kicking with power and understanding how the chest protector works, although great fighters like Aaron Cook, who I like a lot, he couldn't figure it out. And that was a guy that was,
He
he
did
was
figure it out
limited.
though. He just missed
He
his
definitely
window.
figured out.
He
Yeah.
You
figured
think?
it out,
Yeah.
but he
Yeah.
missed his window in 2012, and that just
Athletically,
kind of
yeah.
no, they
Politically.
they chose somebody else over
Yeah.
him, and he was the number one. Was he the number one dude in the world?
In the world at that point, yeah, I
He was the
think
number one
so.
dude in the world. The WT changed the rules because of him. But listen, I get your point. There's always going to be unicorns, but then there's just going to be the rest of us that just certain things that you have to have, and that it'll be enough or it won't be enough. One last thing on this that I don't think we've talked about is the scoring of the rounds, of the
Mm.
round by round, because that was, I hate to say it, but that was earth shaking. Changing instead of a cumulative points. I mean, think about it. You went from paper scoring, not knowing, to immediate scoring with push buttons, to electronics, to now all of a sudden, there's point gaps, and now there's round one, you win, start all over, and do it again. A lot like boxing, 10-point must system. That changed a lot, TJ.
For me, I think that was a better. I would think that was a change for the better. I think that was a
Mm.
change for the better. I watched too many matches. They come out there and you're down 12-0, and I get it. If you're down 12-0, you deserve to lose that match. But like, if it's second round and third round, and you're watching the same match, and you go back to what we were just talking about with the cancel and standing still and avoiding and not having to fight, it's a very bad thing for our sport. So I think that round by round system for two things, I'm gonna say it made it better for the coaching because we've all been, Coach Romero, you've been in those matches. You lost the first round by 5, 6 points. Now you're able to reconnect and start back from zero, as opposed to giving a strategy to get back to even and then take the fight on. So I think that was a good change. I'm actually a big fan of the round by round. I like it just that from a, like I said, from a coaching standpoint, and being able to just change the dynamics of the match and not have to just conform to, okay, now I gotta go, or now I know this person's gonna stand back. I mean, that's how we used to talk about. Okay, this guy's up 8. You know he's gonna wait, so you gotta go, 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 go.
You got to
That
trap
didn't.
them.
Yeah, and there's none of that left anymore. I don't see too much of that. But my point with Korea being ahead, I don't really necessarily mean they're ahead. I just, there's countries like, I mean, I'm always impressed with Iran, who always show up. They always show
Always.
they always show up. They have people, and I think as long as that level of like understanding and toughness is there, I think that's what makes this game for me a little unique with the electronics. I mean, you see it played well, you see it played bad, but also let's not. I mean, for me, even before, you see good matches, you see bad matches, you see good people, you see bad people. I think the discrepancy for us is the top of the top and how low the low gets. I don't think it was ever that big of a gap. I think the gap can get big, especially when we're talking about development and following through to the higher level. So
Yeah. So
I got a question. I got a
good.
real quick question. Like domestically, I mean, again, so I mean, obviously, we have some pretty high level coaches in this country. Some that have come over, some that have been here, some that have developed. Um, TJ, I mean, without like, we don't have to. I always say this because we shouldn't feel bad if we talk about somebody good or bad. I mean, it's just our opinions. But like, I mean, there seems to be a staff that's been put together for maybe the high level, and then there's some staff for other competitions, and there seems to be some people being added. Like, in your opinion, why how's a guy like you not being utilized for the U.S.? I mean, I would like to say put myself in that category, but I told you I work for another country. I have for the last 5 years. They've treated me well and stuff like that. If I was ever invited back, I have to consider it depending who's leading, what my role and stuff like that. But I know you coach here domestically. You got one of the hot kids right now, in a couple divisions, two in one male and one female division. What do you think?
I mean, that goes back to, I mean, that's a listen. I've worked with the organization when I was with WCAP, and having to, had that more higher level, being able to travel and do all the competitions and everything. And it's just a matter of them wanting who they want, and they want people that's going to conform to their style and conform to what they say and conform to what they do. And the reality is, I've been again. I had a conversation with someone maybe a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, look, I've tried everything. I've tried to get along. I've held stopwatches. I've helped run trainings. I've offered my guys up there. I've coached extra people when I've been told that, like, I'm only here to coach a certain person to give me more athletes. The reality is I'm not their guy. I'm not their guy. They don't have anything. They don't have any place for me. They don't want us, and they don't want me involved. And I'll say
But
that very
again, and,
blatantly.
and listen, I know coaching staffs like football, baseball, basketball, they pick their people, they're kind of around them. But like again, in an individual, we're a team, but in individual athletes, like I mean, I just don't understand why people don't see the value in somebody with your experience, somebody's value of technical. I mean, again, not even talking about old times of in a sense of your competitive career and stuff like that, but currently, right now, I mean, you got to be one of the brighter guys in the country, and to get passed over for a cadet job or a coaching trip or a junior coaching trip or an open coaching trip or a Pan Am or a Worlds, it's a little bit crazy to me. And I think that going back to the betterment of the country, I think a guy like you, I know they would be better. I know your energy, I know your emotion, I know your love, I know your skill. I think that this country in particular would be better off, with you, on those trips, working with other people. And I know you play nice with people, so it is what it is. But I just had to say that to you because I know we've talked about that many times. But I think people out there need to hear it too.
Nah,
Truth.
and again, I don't know. I don't know what, that's one of those things, right? And that's kind of like the format. That's why I like this format. I mean, look, I can't even tell you. I mean, if I could tell you a straight answer, like I said, it's just because I'm not who they want. I'm not their person. I'm not their. I don't know. I mean, it's
Well,
it's
they don't want you because they don't want to win. So I mean, let me say it as simply as I can say it. So we have coaches that don't live here. We have coaches that coach. We have coaches. The U.S., whatever it's called now, has become a second tier organization run by second and third and fourth tier guys that when we were in the room, they didn't have a voice because they didn't win. And we treated it like a professional organization. What that means is if you didn't have value and you couldn't win, you weren't on the floor. And just like in the NFL, you couldn't produce, you didn't get your job back, and that's it. To be perfectly frank, the medal count in the United States is pathetic, and the men in the United States and their medal count and their best hopeful that was tick-tocking and wake-walking instead of training didn't produce. At that moment, if you take that sort of talent because the individual is talented, you fire the coach. You fire the coach, you fire the staff, and you find somebody who can lead the organization to medal potential. So you don't let politics get in the way. Bella Caroli is a perfect example. And without talking about what the other stuff that's come up, that was a guy that produced medals. He wasn't easy to get along with. Nobody liked him. Nobody liked Phil Carroll. Nobody likes the coaches of the 49ers or whatever teams you can think about. I'm not there to be liked. I'm there to win. And when I
I don't
stop
like the
winning,
Cowboys coach. Take them out.
take them,
get
take
rid of
them.
our quarterback too. Throw him out with him. They all can
Yeah,
leave.
Take 'em
but
out.
no, like
Me and TJ are Cowboy fans.
the last person to win in that stadium apparently was Jake Paul. But the reality is that that's kind of what it is. Taekwondo's state in the United States is pathetic. It doesn't win medals, and the men don't win medals, which means one of two things. We're incapable of winning medals because the athletes in this country don't go to our sport and aren't capable, and they're not good enough. That's not true. We have more people. We have 330 million people, and from that thing, you'll get a ton of people that can do it. Secondly, you have the possibility that it's the staff of the organization. But I mean, this is going to be a topic for another day. I don't want to open that can of worms because I got two cans that need to be opened. This is one of the two cans, but we'll get back to it. And I don't want to name anybody in particular. And I don't want to, when you go outside your country for coaching staff, when you have better coaching staff in your country, you do disservice to the country. And that's not because I'm an outstanding patriot. I'm just a realist. We have and continue to have great coaches in this country that don't coach. The last thing I'll say on it is I just saw they published their list of best schools. And I'm kind of chuckling because if that's your best schools and these are the best medals you're winning, then you got to get some better schools and better coaches. Because if you can't put people on a U.S. team to win, I mean, we're winning the Pumse Championship, I guess. We could
Yeah,
win the
we're killing
ballet.
it, flips it.
Who cares? We could win. I mean that in the nicest sense of the way I can mean it. You know, we're producing dancers, and that's great. If we were in Russia and we're in the Balanchine contest, we're not. We're supposed to be competing with full contact martial artists, mano y mano, men with cojones, you know, and guys that you were afraid to see. I'm not afraid to see any of these athletes. I'm not afraid to hurt their feelings. I'd be afraid to hurt Jimmy Kim's feelings or Scott Morani's feelings or Juan Moreno or you. And so anyway, enough of that, but I know we got to wrap it up. Final thoughts, because we'll have more on this next week.
Yeah. I got one more question before we go, and this is for Coach Moreno and also you, sir. But like when we thought about, I think when I was growing up, we always thought about having, you know, compare yourself to other countries with the centralized training system. Is this what we meant when we thought about having a centralized training system? Is this the vision that we had, like what it is now for a
Uh,
centralized training system for
Listen,
developmental, high level, all that stuff?
you know, I was part of a centralized training system. I was part of the Olympic Training Center, and I think that
Mm.
listen, with success, you're always gonna have love and hate, right? You're gonna have people that love it because they're part of it. You have people that hate it because they're not part of it. I think that's human nature. But I also think that you needed both, in my opinion, both were established incorrectly. Both were established at the first one that I went to. Before I went there, there was people there that didn't deserve to be there. They knew people, they knew people, they knew people, and they were there. And ultimately, that was the downfall because then a lot of those people went away. Some good people came in. Then it got back to that, and it just Rome fell. This one, I think the intention was correct. Okay, let's have a high performance center with top level athletes, but that's not what we got. We got people picking people based on they liked them, they didn't like them, they saw potential, they kept them too long, they chewed them up and spit them out, they didn't develop them. So I think that people as well as I gotta go there because if I don't go there, they won't see me and I'll never be able to make the team. That is just that people think like that. True or not true, that people actually say that, and a lot do. It shows that the system is wrong. Something hasn't been created properly and it's not being successful. So if I listen, put me out there, give me a system like that for the last 5 or 6 years. I will guarantee you that I'll have better results. I will guarantee you. You give me a facility, you give me strength conditioning, you give me nutrition, you give me a budget, you let me pick the best athletes, put everybody in the room. It's a slam dunk because I did that with nothing in a warehouse with no air conditioning. So, and again, call me a hater, call me whatever, but I think the system. To answer your question, TJ, no, that's not what we envisioned. That's not what I envisioned, and I would be willing to have a conversation with anybody how it's sitting right now. If they said that's how you envisioned it, I just don't. I don't believe many people would say, yeah, just like that.
Well,
Yeah.
that may be our topic for next time because I've got a lot of thoughts on it, having been in the room in the original and watched it, and then when we tried to fix it, I mean, we brought on a couple of coaches to fix it, and what I would call is nationalized the program with regional training centers. What I will say is you don't have the best and the brightest and the people that won medals running the organization, and they don't understand it. So maybe that is a topic for next time. And the topic could be how do you fix it? And that might be a great starting place for us next time. In the meanwhile, though, I want to thank everybody. This has been, as always, the Warehouse 15. And it's not because it's 15 minutes. There's a reason we'll tell you about, but it has been real. It has been personal. And if you think that I was speaking about you and you thought it was personal, it probably was. But this is Herb Perez. This is Juan Moreno, and this is TJ Jennings, and we are here and we are out. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Later.
All right, let me kill my recording.